Hi, everybody. Looks like we're at the top of the hour. I can't hear you, but I'm hoping you can hear me. Is there a hand raise if you do? Excellent. Thank you. My name is Ellen Goodwin, and I am the co-founder of Artifacts. We like to say it's where stuff and stories meet. And my job today is to introduce you to Artifacts and how it can support all of your genealogy and family history work and make it very exciting to share with family and friends beyond the genealogy world and get them excited to dig into your insights with you. So on we go. In today's class, I'm going to introduce Artifacts. Why does it exist? What is it? Who are we? I think that's important. I know that you probably know who the founders of bigger companies are, but I think it's important to know who we are because it shapes a lot of how we've built this. We'll talk about artifacts for genealogists, and we took a different approach, brand new presentation for today. We actually decided to show you the 10 favorite ways that genealogists have shown us how they like to use artifacts in the course of their research and sharing their insights. And then I'll talk through how to get started. It's a beautiful system in that it doesn't require perfection. It can support perfection, but it's not requiring perfection. So we'll talk about how to get started very easily. And I will leave time at the end for Q&A. If there's a way that they can unmute the mic on your side so I can hear it or type into chat. We'll see how that goes, I guess. On we go. I like to say that the status quo is really tough on stuff. And I'm hopeful that some of you can relate to this cartoon. One day, son, all this will be yours. In the case of my co-founder, when her mother passed away unexpectedly, it wasn't a garage full of stuff, it was an entire house. And after several months of going through it, it was also quickly becoming the most expensive time capsule. She was the only girl and the eldest, and her brothers said, not it. And they said, have fun, but don't get rid of anything important. And how do we know what's important? So very quickly, the things that get left behind become a burden if we don't know what they are. The status quo is also really tough on our stories, right? We all collect a lot of digital photos, physical photos. This picture on the far right is actually from my house when my mom said she had some photos for me, and I did not know who anyone in the photos were, which was kind of alarming because I felt this guilt of I need to care about these photos and I don't know who they are. There's also this idea that we can use metadata and update that on my phone, which is very cool, but I don't want to stare at metadata. I wish I didn't know the word, frankly. And the status quo is tough on you. I have a lot of genealogists in my life, and when they tell me I can't get people to, sign in and look at the tree or look at these documents, I think that these documents and these trees sing for you all in a way that can be hard to convey the magic of your discoveries and the connections you've made. I have a genealogist that I work with here in Austin. I'm in Austin, Texas. She has this beautiful collection of folders on her laptop, 200 different folders. And, from that, she can pull out the magic of how, one relative relates to Bonnie and Clyde, the famous Bonnie and Clyde. But she has to go to 3 folders to do it. And it's really difficult to share these stories. And one day, all these folders will go to her daughter, and she'll have to recreate all these stories. So we know the status quo can be very tough. So we decided to look at it a little bit differently. There's dozens and dozens of apps that can help you capture stories and memories, but we wanted to deal specifically with the stuff. So I can take a pair of goggles and a brochure and a photograph and take photos of them. I can add a story to them on Artifacts. 5 words, this is my great aunt, or 5,000 words, however much you want. We wanted to avoid creating this story burden. We want you to say why this thing matters and click save. This creates a digital artifact where you have the story intact and you can connect those dots for somebody using photo, video, and audio, along with any details you choose. We just secured our patent on this in November, and it's a very exciting thing to be able to patent in the technology space that is helping consumers across a broad spectrum, including genealogists. Who are we? I think it's really important to share. This is my co-founder and myself. We met and grew up together at the Central Intelligence Agency, and we reunited later in our careers to create Artifacts. We're supported by a beautiful, lovely advisory board that covers tech, estate planning, downsizing, and decluttering, product, and marketing. We take a different approach. We talk about no story burden, right? We want to make sure that people know why things matter to you or don't, right? Don't save this. I won't haunt you if you get rid of it. Here's the story behind it. We're ad free and everything public or private, your choice. Everything on default is private. We want to make sure that you're in complete control of your information at all times. And here I put some logos of companies that we're working with or others that we are part of, like the AARP Age Tech Collaborative, Carson Wealth, Howard Insurance, and more. That's who we are. Now, what on earth is an artifact? I showed you this one in the quick preview, but I'm going to walk through exactly what is it, because what you'll find very quickly is there's no one way to create an artifact. It's really the art that is up to you. So over here is the media section. In your artifact, you can have up to 5 photos, video, or audio to tell that story. Then you name it. Sometimes I'm very specific. Sometimes I'm funnier, like a newspaper headline, whatever you choose. Then you have your screen name. You can click a screen name. You can see any artifacts from that person. Little hi tells you a little bit about me, including the fact that I'm really good at killing plants. And then here's your description, your story, whatever you want to have. Sometimes I really do use short form. Sometimes it's enough to say this didn't come from Target, it belonged to Dad. Other times you have a longer story with deep information that you wanted to provide. Categories and tags. We built the categories to be a lot like collectibles or auction houses, and then we made some our own. For example, no auction house is going to have life moments firsts. Life moments, memorabilia, but it's really important in how we live our daily lives. So we had to bring in special categories of our own. Each of those is clickable and would take you to other artifacts that you've created or others have created in those same categories. Likewise, tags. We wanted to free people from folders. I often, even professionally, have trouble remembering if I filed something away in folder X or Y. We use tags. They are customizable. You can use as many as you want. You click a tag, it'll show you everything that you've tagged that way. We want to make all of this information in your artifact searchable so you can get back to any artifact very quickly. Documents. Documents, you'll notice, have a little padlock on them. They are never publicly shareable, but they are shareable with direct individuals if you so choose. So in this case, this woman was a welder for World War II. She had a brochure, a job notice, and an award from the US Navy. She added these in the documentation of the artifact. There's a lot of extra details that you can add, all optional, and they can help you in different ways. If you're going to insure an item, add it to your will, sell it, move it, you might want dimensions or weight added in. You might want to have the brand or the artist information added in. All of that is optional and can come in time as you round out your artifacts. Now, because I created this artifact, I have edit. I can go in and edit anytime. I can download it. The other people who can download this artifact are anyone you directly share it with. It makes it really easy, and we'll talk more about that. You can also print off a QR code. So if you have a photo, you can put the QR code on the back, and anyone scans it, up pops the story. You have a family heirloom, put this QR code in the box. Someone finds the box with the item, they scan it, up pops the story behind the item. It's one thing to say, I have this beautiful 1800 baptismal gown that's been passed down through the family, and I've put it in this beautiful archival box with a peekaboo window, but now I have a dress in a box. I've got to be able to convey to somebody, what is this dress in a box? It came from a wedding dress. It was remade. It's been cleaned. These 5 people wore it, and now here it is. We need to be able to share those stories very easily. And of course, I can delete it. I can also, if I think it might be a valuable family heirloom, I can click what's it worth and privately share this artifact with Heritage Auctions out of Dallas, Texas, the world's largest collectibles auction house. And they'll give you a free valuation. They'll say, this clock from this maker in this condition in today's market might go for $5,000 to $6,000. They will attach that free valuation directly here in the documentation so you have it for a reference. You might say $5,000 to $6,000, I need to get an appraisal and add that to my insurance policy. Or you might say $5,000 to $6,000 is just a clock. I'm going to sell it and I'm going to use that money for other purposes. The idea with what's it worth is to give you more information to help you decide what to do with the items. And finally, there's options right here on the photo to pin, to share, and to change the privacy at any time on any artifact that you have. This one is public, so there's a globe. I could click it and make it private in an instant. That is an artifact. Now we get to the fun part. I did preview this with a few of our genealogy friends, and I got a big thumbs up, so I hope you'll enjoy the 10 lessons that genealogists have taught us about artifacting. 1, timelines reinvented for you. We did go through a test group with our timelines, and what was interesting, and I tell people all the time, is when I was building this with our engineering team, since I manage our product and engineering, I was working with pretend artifacts. And then all of a sudden you see your real artifacts in a timeline, and it's a very different feel, right? I saw the time period when I was in graduate school. I saw the time period when my daughter was born. I saw the time period I lived in Wisconsin. It all comes bubbling up. But with that comes identification of gaps. What genealogists taught us about our timeline feature that we built with them was unique ways of using it for research support. You can change the view from decades to years. You can add notes. Now, when we thought of adding notes to our timeline, we thought it would be to give context. I lived in Wisconsin for these years. I lived in North Carolina for these years. I thought it would be context about life. Not for genealogists. Our genealogists have been using them to add research notes, gaps, question marks, other things that they want to check into regarding a certain year or decade in time. I think that's brilliant. And we're very excited to see how this is evolving. With your timeline, you can drag and reorder them simply by clicking on them and assigning a specific date. These are your artifacts. The second one is about interconnecting stories. Now, we did take a look at social media, and I love how easy it is to and indicate another group or a person. We took that idea here into Artifacts, and we do it a little bit differently. We want you to be able to connect people and stories together using that at symbol. In this example, I'm showing the original owner of the family harp. This is from my own family. I grew up knowing my uncle had this big, beautiful harp in his family room, and I had no idea where it came from. Now, if somebody said it was your great father Glidden's, I still don't think it would have resonated with me. I would have tucked that data point away. But then when I see it here, here's a photo of him with it. Here's the story about it. And by the way, here's how he fits into your family tree. I'm able to share the information in a way that resonates better. I'm going to try and actually click and take you there. And hopefully, technology is on my side. This is how the artifact looks over on artifacts.com. In the artifact, I have the actual photo. I have the back of the photo and the details that were written on it. And I have a photo of him that exists from when he was a baby, all together in one artifact. I also have the story as it was told to me. And I have a link here to him on my path to the DAR story, where I actually included him I copied and pasted from my paperwork for the DAR where he fit in the tree. And so when I got to Glidden, I used the @ and now I can cross-reference where he is in my tree and the fact that he was the owner of the family harp. I can also link to other artifacts that others create as well. So this one was made by my aunt and uncle. I didn't make this artifact, but I can link over to it and I can connect things and make them come alive. In this artifact, I also attached all my DAR documentation so that I would have that information if I ever needed it again. Back over to the harp. 3, limitless custom tags. Okay, when we first created artifacts, we were used to tags in social media. And people would tag things, with a name of a person or a holiday or things like that. It wasn't until genealogists started using artifacts that we realized, wow, tags really are limitless. This is a real example pulled from my family tree, so to speak. My aunt is a genealogist. She does a lot of artifacting. She doesn't like having to send things by text or email where people lose them, so she started artifacting everything that she wants to share. You can see how many tags she created. She used tags for every single family member that was mentioned by extension to this person who's featured. The reason she did it was because for her, it's the same as a folder. Now, every time she wants to create an artifact related to Eliza Benton, she uses that tag And if she clicks on the tag, Eliza Benton, she knows she will get to every artifact she's already created about that same person. The limitless possibility of tags is the ultimate enabler for genealogists who want to be able to sort without the restrictions of a singular system. The database essentially is working on your side in this case. 4, save sanity, share smarter. This is another lesson directly taken from one of the genealogists we worked with who reported having problems with sharing photos and having them compressed. When you create an artifact, you upload your photos and your video. We do not compress that information. The originals are stored with your artifact. So if you then by extension share, in this case, I shared an artifact with 3 people. All 3 of those people now have access to the original photo, video, audio that I included in the artifact. I do not need to text them the file. I don't need to drop it in a share drive. They have access directly. So one share, I get the power of they now have those resources anytime they need it. I don't have to follow on with their original quality file. Likewise, when you're working on a family project, maybe it's a family reunion, maybe you're working on a family book or a cookbook or anything like that, you can create a family circle. When you create a family circle, I created one for my May family. It's all of my aunts, uncles, and first cousins. We can share things into that family circle to support family reunions. We did one this summer. We used recipes. Everyone contributed a recipe and artifact of it. But I also went and interviewed my great aunt before she passed away. I artifacted all of the family stories that she had and the mementos she had from her parents, my great grandparents. So these things can all be brought together in a circle on artifacts. A circle is unlimited. You can bring in as many people as you want. They need only a free account to join, but you can start sharing artifacts just like you would a chat in a chat group, swapping comments. So now you can share smarter. Create the artifact, share it with the circle, and everyone that's invited can see it. You don't have to worry about remembering, share it with this person, this person, this person. They might not be ready for it in the moment, but it'll be there waiting for them. You can share the artifact with the circle and it's still private to everybody else. Only the circle members can see it. This is why we remind you on this screen that privacy is in your control. By default, nobody sees anything. Then you start sharing as you need to or as you want to. Number 5, brand or artist in your tree. We never imagined that genealogists would enjoy artifacts as much as they have already. And part of that is because we think of genealogy as starting at the person as the node and the tree as the means for organizing information. But what we've discovered by the help of some genealogists is that when push comes to shove, you're going to find a way to get things done. So in this case, my aunt asked me to include a link to this family member in the tree from ancestry.com. Why did she ask me to do this? It was because she's trying to save herself the trouble of having to look him back up. And I think it's really interesting because if you have a brand artist or maker in your family and you want to keep connecting, the next time I want to choose Glidden Wilson, Glidden will appear in my dropdown. I don't have to go fish for that link again. And so what's interesting to watch for us is how genealogists are trying to bring their worlds together and make their work smoother and to avoid repetition of tasks. So in this case, for the family harp, because of the custom work on the harp, I cheated and used brand or artist, but Glidden Wilson is here. I have access to him in the family tree over on ancestry.com in this case. So this is another really brilliant way we're seeing genealogists do 2 things. They're still getting the story shared with the family and friends who are not genealogists, and they're getting their work done too, so that they make sure it's all consistent across the systems they're using. 6, location is more than attic. And what I mean by that is when we built Artifacts, we intended location to be a physical place. It's in storage. It's in my front hall closet. It's in the credenza. It's at grandma's house. We thought that it would be a physical location. But what we've quickly learned again is that because in part of the depth of research that a lot of genealogists have at their fingertips. You'll have folders, you'll have share drives, you'll have a lot of different resources where you're storing more related information. And so location became this outlet for genealogists to say, yes, I've created this story here, and here's the basic photos and basic documents that are most important, but there's a lot more information, and here's where it's located. Now, the location field is padlocked. That's something that's only viewable to you to support your research in this case. And that's why the Google Drive link will be shareable, viewable, excuse me, only to yourself. Now, if you had family and friends and you wanted to say, hey, we have family videos and documents and much more about this in this location, you would keep your artifact private. You would put the same Google Drive link in the text, and they would have private access to click that, and then they could go over to Google Drive to get other resources that you have saved for them to view. 7, share the love and your sources. So sometimes what we've found is the genealogists have supporting research documents that they do want to share. Letters are a great example. Drafts of family chapters in books. Cookbooks are another example. Original scans of death certificates or other research materials related to a specific person. These resources can go into the documentation section. For example, here there are 2, Wilson Genealogy Carter Originals in PDF, which is a scan of what you see at the top there, very important, Wilson Genealogy, and a transcription into Word document that's trying to go through the elaborate cursive and write out what it is. So now when you have these kinds of original sources that others might be interested in, you can put them in the documents. And when you click share, you can say you want to include sharing of the documents with those individuals. That way they can get to the originals and they don't have to come back to you asking for them, but they are private there. So if I did want to post this, say it was a great insight into America, the Americas in the 1800s, Boston, and you wanted to share it to a Boston research group, but you didn't want them to see all the private family notes, you could share the artifact with that group and keep the notes private because it's padlocked. Public users will never be able to see those private documents. So this is a great way to share those original resources with family members that might actually be curious or find other uses for them. Genealogists. Okay, color coding. So when we first got working with genealogists after Roots Tech conference last year, a common complaint that we came across was that we didn't have color coding. Pinks, blues, yellows for different, have different meaning in the trees that you're working with, and we had demand for that here at Artifacts. So we did bring in color coding and highlighting so that you can use that to support your work. I do know that from some of the genealogists that share their artifacts with me, I don't always know what the colors mean, but I know they have a lot of meaning for genealogists. And so it is ready and able to be used here. You can add links as well and other formatting that we brought in for some of the longer research pieces that we see genealogists bringing in, and they needed more sophisticated organization here. And that is also a fun genealogy win. Captions were another one. We brought in captions for photos. So originally, because you only have 5 photo, video, audio, and you have the story right next to it, we didn't really think captions would be necessary. Genealogists have convinced us we were very wrong. And here's a great example. This gentleman, Thomas McKinty, he artifacted his high school diploma. And in true genealogist fashion, you see high school diploma, Thomas McKinty, born 1962, Liberty, da, 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 da. It's a true citation in a genealogist world. That's a dream, right? You have all the information you need right there in the caption, as well as in the supporting details of the artifact. So we do see a trend with our genealogist friends who are using the captions much more in citation format than in story advancing format. Either way is still great, but it's a small change that we made that got a lot of people excited because they wanted to use them in more formal terms for themselves and for continuing their work. Here's that artifact. I think that hopefully you can see my screen. Can I get a hand if you can see my screen? Okay, great. Thank you. So here's how that artifact looks here. I wanted to pop over so that you could see. If I click on the artifact, you'll see the full certificate. You can see the caption down below, and in the details, there's some additional information that the person provided. And I could always go see other artifacts from the same person as well. But that's how we shift from one to the other and provide more details as needed. Stories that will stand the test of time. I'm revisiting the one that I told you about earlier for a reason. At the age of 97, I went to interview my great aunt. She had downsized repeatedly at that age, and she didn't have a lot of personal belongings left in her small apartment. My family sent me to Artifact with her because, frankly, she was the last of her generation. And they wanted to make sure that her stories were captured. And they knew that she had a lot of beautiful family mementos and heirlooms that were in need of being preserved. What was remarkable to me is that of all of the things that she had chosen to keep were this photo, the brochure behind it, the goggles, the newspaper article that was about her working in her community as a volunteer welding gates to help keep people safe. Her son thought it was just a hobby. And lo and behold, she was welding for World War II. She was a regular Rosie the Riveter. But her own son didn't know this story. He hadn't asked, she hadn't told him. And so it was a piece of personal history to her that was clearly very important because she had kept all of these things. It was a piece of family history, it's a piece of world history, but just nobody knew. And so this is how we think that artifacts helps across time in order to make sure that we retain these stories and share them in ways that make them easier to access for all. I'm going to show you what Muriel's stories look like over here on Artifacts. I captured many of them. Let me check. I can not do a typo. Here we go. These are the artifacts that we created together, my Aunt Muriel and me. You'll notice a lot of them are photographs, and the reason for that is very simple. A photograph can't talk. One generation removed and the story's gone, a second generation removed and you don't know who it is in the photo. Likewise, a piece of jewelry. This is a great example of the gold rush bracelet. Nobody knew that it came from the gold rush. They had forgotten this detail of history. So it's a piece of world history. But I have her here on video telling the story about it. Otherwise, she had a handwritten note on the back of a bank envelope that she kept tucked into a separate space, hoping someone would find it and connect it to that bracelet. If I take you up here, here's the one that I featured, Muriel the Welder. And here's her on video telling me the story about learning to weld for World War II.
Learning to weld. Then we had to be certified by the Army and Navy.
The point is, she wanted to tell her story and she could do it very easily. It took us 30 seconds to record this video, another 30 seconds to create the artifact. When she saw the video, she actually said to me, "Oh, I look so old." And I was thinking, well, you're 97, you kind of earned it. So we were really glad. When she passed away this spring, the first thing I did was resend this link to Muriel's stories to all of my family to make sure that they had access to all of her artifacts. I'm going to stay over on Artifacts and give you a little bit of a tour. When you create a free account here on Artifacts, you're going to have a landing page that looks just like mine, except it won't be personalized yet and it won't have artifacts. But I'm going to show you what it looks like ultimately. We do allow you to personalize your space. This is a photo I took when I was in Boston last summer. This is my daughter and me. And this is my homepage. I can look at the latest artifacts that I've created. Yes, I do throw away my Christmas cards, so I artifact them every year so I don't feel so guilty. I artifact travel mementos. I artifact artwork that I purchase. I can also see all the things I've recently viewed. I can follow all the people here and see the latest of things that they have artifacted. I can see what's new, what people from around the community have artifacted and either made public or shared with me directly. So this is all of these artifacts are from others around the community. You can see how eclectic it is. People artifact what is important to them. And that's what we tell people. Why do we misspell our name? There's a lot of reasons why we took the A out of artifacts. One of the very most important reasons is that we're redefining artifacts. They might not be valuable, they might not belong in a museum or be historically relevant, but they're important to you. And you'll see that very clearly here on Artifacts. You'll also see recent tips and articles that we've shared. We have a very robust blog. We also run a lot of free webinars. We have an Evenings with Artifacts series every fall and spring, and those are also available through our website. Now, back up here to my latest artifacts. One of my fun favorite features, tags. I've told you how important they are. I've told you how genealogists have embraced them, but they can be wild west to keep track of. So we do surface them here in another way. There's lots of ways to get to them. You can see my top artifact is the word Violet. It's actually my daughter's name. So I routinely tag things Violet. Artifacts, video, work life, Christmas. These are my most popular tags. I can also bump over here to category, and I can see I have 50 artifacts in the art category, and I can see them by category here. Subcategory, kids artifacts, go figure. Another big one. I can't keep it all, but I can document it here with my daughter telling me all about everything she's created. Now, when I go into my artifacts collection, I want to show you the timeline in its true form here. We have a lot of different view types. You can do list view or tile view, flipbook, and the new timeline view. But more important, what I want to show you first is downloading of artifacts. I want to revisit the principle here. These are your artifacts. If you were to ever create all these artifacts and for any reason decide you were done artifacting and you didn't want them here anymore, you will be able to download your entire collection in its original form to take with you, not compressed. Every photo, video, audio, document, it will all come zipped right back down, including an Excel sheet with all of your information, ready for you to reuse. This won't be in a proprietary format. It'll be in the format that you brought it into us with. You'll get it right back. That is really, really important. This is yours, not ours. You have to be able to take it back. Now, about the timeline view, I'll let this load. So when I'm in a timeline view, I keep mine in the annual view, and I can scroll through and I can see all the artifacts through time that I have created by year. But as I said, I can always go up here and I can toggle over to decade view if I so choose, and scroll back through the 80s, 70s. You can see it gets very slim pickings down here. 1820s, that's when The Night Before Christmas was written, if you didn't know that. I actually artifacted the book because it's such a treasure in our house, and I have my daughter reading the book in the artifact. Now, I can also, as I mentioned, add time period notes, and I can also flip it oldest to newest, newest to oldest. I can make it work for however I'm doing my research. In this case, I'm going to show you an example of what a time period note looks like. I don't tend, oh, here's the 1970s, here's my parents. I don't tend to do, I'm not a genealogist, so I don't use mine for research purposes, but I do add notes to talk about, oh, I was in college and give context. So this note is padlocked. It means it's only viewable to me. It says I graduated from high school this year, spent the summer working at a bagel shop, and then I went off to university. So these are the way we can add notes. This is how genealogists are working with timelines to keep track of their research and to fill gaps. I don't use it that way, but it doesn't mean it's not a great use case. So timelines are a great use. Now, when I go to an item, if I say, oh, well, this is the year I lived in the Czech Republic, so I see all these Czech artifacts, but maybe I put it in the wrong place. I can just click and drag, and I can pick a new date. This will automatically update within the artifact too. So it's very easy to reorganize your artifacts. If I want to go into an artifact, I can click on it at any time, and I can see, yes, this is a Czech crystal vase. I want to view that artifact, and I can pop over and I can read more about my own artifact. I can edit it. I can see the different views. I have the audio telling the story about it. I can continue reading, and you can see the same controls I showed you earlier in the anatomy of an artifact. Here they are. And you can also see, just like before, now I can see other home front artifacts from those I have access to. When I go into edit, I want to show you the variety of details, and I want to show you a very important field. I actually gave a presentation this morning for the Daughters of the American Revolution. Every presentation is a little different, and what excited some of them the most was one of our optional fields on our quick form. When you create an artifact, we want you to be fast and easy, 30 seconds, right? Add a photo, video, audio, name it, pick a category, 5 words, 500 for a description, whatever you want. Country of origin, you can also say unknown or not applicable. Here's the field that gets people really excited, which makes me excited. In the future, it's an optional field, but we surface it here on the quick form because at the end of the day, we are trying to help you tackle stuff. We're trying to change your relationship to it, realize why it matters, and share that with others, and figure out also what happens next. Is it going to get insured? Is it going to be sold? Are you going to pass it down, and to whom? In the future is how we help you think through that and record it. Are you going to sell it? Great. You might even want to set a reminder. You can do that here. You're going to move in 6 months and the hutch isn't coming. This can help remind you. Charitable donation. A lot of our genealogists are making donations to historical societies that they work with or lineage societies. This is a great way to keep track of what you want to go where. Bequeath, also important. Now, notice again, in the future has a padlock. If you say child number 1 gets the diamond ring, sorry, child number 2, it's not you, that child, if they have access to this artifact, if you share it with them, will not know this. It's padlocked. They cannot see this information. We want you to have that conversation with them. We're not going to break the bad news to child number 2. So here's where you can put that information. We also have As You Wish. If you're fans of Princess Bride, that's where it came from. If you don't care where it goes, let them know. I'm not going to haunt you. You can get rid of this. We also have Too Late, I already got rid of it, enjoy the memory. This is saving families who are going through estates from trying to find something they are sure is there and are feeling tortured because they can't find because you didn't keep it. You already got rid of it. So this is how an artifact form can help you manage the stuff as well. Here's where we have the custom tags. We have finally in year 2 brought in some of the most popular themes that we've seen come up in tagging, and we've put them here, but you can always type and create your own tag. And as I mentioned, full form, you have a lot of details you can add over time as needed. We work with a lot of move managers as well. They want to have dimensions. They want to know where things are. Those are important information. Depends on what you're doing and whether what purpose your artifacts are serving for you. But those information are here. They are accessible. You can add them and change them at any time. Now, when I create an artifact, you might wonder, we get a lot of questions about what happens someday. I'm no longer here. I created all these artifacts. What am I going to do, if I'm not here anymore? So we do have legacy contacts at Artifacts. In your account settings, we have this managed so that you can nominate an legacy contact, and they will have permissions over what to do with those artifacts. That's where we can do it here. I also have, excuse me, right here. I also have nominated people who can see every artifact I create, my daughter and my husband. So if you don't want to have to share every time you create an artifact with somebody, we have settings for that too. I'm not going to go through all the settings, but I think it's really important to recognize that what we want you to be able to do is control your privacy and control your artifacts and make sure they live on so that your family has access to the stories. Before I pop back into the slide deck, I want to talk briefly about special collections. This is its own presentation on itself, but the idea of circles was fundamentally about how we can more easily share things and keep them private at the same time, and bring in people who might not be researchers or genealogists or involved in artifacting in the same level. So this is my May family circle. And I've invited all my aunts, uncles, and first cousins in. It's a new circle. We've started populating it with some of the family things, cookbooks, genealogy, family photos. You see, I pushed over all of the murals, artifacts, my DAR information, items that came up, family recipes, grandma's chocolate cookies, old photos, family silver, the wedding brooch that every single person in my mom's family wore. It's all there. And so this is another feature I think is really important because you can bring people in for free and start that conversation and get the family reunions off on a whole different foot next time you have one. So this is your kind of high level view of artifacts. And now I'm going to pop back over into the presentation. The question I always get next is, wow, I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of research. Where on earth do I start? You start by creating a free account, and you start with picking up any object that matters to you in any way, and you start with the obvious. We had a guest writer come in. He's the author of multiple books, and he writes even books about objects. And he said, when in doubt, say something true about it. What is it? This morning at the DAR, this woman told me she bought an object to share. And I said, oh, that's fabulous. They look like two long sticks. And I said, what is this? And I didn't know what it was. And she said, oh, they're knitting needles. And I said, oh, that's great. What's the story? She said, they don't have a story. And then she proceeded to explain that her great grandmother lived in the Upper East Coast and that these were made of whale bone. And she was a prolific knitter. And she had this community. She tells us about the community. And I turned to the DIR women and I said, so these are knitting needles and they have no story. Do you all agree they have no story? And everyone laughed because I didn't even know they were knitting needles, much less whalebone, much less who they belong to. You'd be surprised what you know about an object. That's what this example is. I did not know by looking at this object what it was, right? I could see it was a wheel and it had a handle of some sort. And then here's another object this woman brought me. I didn't know that it was for shredding cabbage, right? How do you know that this is a twine winder to wrap meat in a smokehouse that was invented by a man on a farm because he was trying to save his wife time? How do you know these things if you don't tell people? So we tell people, start with something obvious. What is it? This is a twine winder, which is very difficult to say. Don't say it. So start with something true. It's a twine winder. It came from my father. He lived in Missouri. These are multiple facts that are already more than anything else that they've already had. The next thing is what makes the item special or unique or valuable to you, right? I kept this because it's one of only 5 things I have from my father. That's it. That's okay. That's enough information. So when we talk about artifacting, it's truly, there's no right answer. It's very much an art. And we tell people don't get tripped up by the story. The story burden is real. If I have one more person come to me lamenting that they have 50-question survey from their kids to fill in, but they don't like to write, or they feel like it's homework, or they're getting behind, we don't need to create a story burden. You can give few words, you can record audio or video. We have an app. You can directly record right into it and attach the audio video into the artifact and move on. Telling a longer story. When in doubt, again, my co-founder and I told you we come from CIA. The way we write for the president, for policymakers, is bottom line up front. Why do I care about this thing? And then you can worry about all of those key details, the connections, right? This photo, I told you about the harp, right? This is a photo of the man that owned the harp. Now, here's where he fits in the family tree. You can make those connections with longer stories as your time permits. And then as we talked about the in the future field, rehoming, selling, donating. Now, to continue that DAR example, I artifacted the pins. So when I joined, you're supposed to get these pins. And I was fascinated by how many there are and how you customize them. But there's also really strict rules in the DAR about what you do with them next, how you can bequeath them, or how you should return them to the chapter you belong to in the DAR. So what I did is I wrote out the information about these. I linked it to the artifact that I had created about applying to the DAR. And I even included the receipt from when I purchased it. So if I ever needed that information, it's all here in one. You can bet that the QR code to this is also inside this purple box that it came in. So if someone scans that code, up pops the story and all the details they need to know about my DAR pin. And finally, taking care of details. As I've told you, privacy and security are really, really important to us, and we want people to be very careful with the details that they are providing. We've padlocked information. If you have $1 million painting in your family home and you're going to post it into a collector's group on Facebook, great. But nobody's going to know it's worth $1 million. Here's the location and here are the documents to prove it's theirs. Certain information is never shareable publicly. But what we want to also be aware of is we have had instances of folks who have been very forward-leaning, especially in the genealogy, about where people have lived and full names, but these are amateurs, and they have said, "I've pulled back on the information because it was just too much identifying information," and they were new in the field, and now they're kind of going on best practices, but please be careful, especially birth dates seem harmless, anniversary dates, locations, addresses. So we tell people to be very careful about how much information they're putting out there in the world if they're going to make it public. A lot of our collectors and a lot of our genealogists do share a lot publicly. There's a lot of it's easily discoverable publicly, but when you put it all in one place, it becomes more sensitive. So we tell people to just be very careful about what information of their own or others that they're sharing. I wanted to leave time for Q&A, and so I'm not sure if the microphone is working there, but I want to also say again that I'll be sharing these slides from the presentation, and we have a lot of great resources that are downloadable for free and are interlinked. So we have a quick start guide you can download from our FAQs. We have a plethora of checklists. People always ask us, what should I artifact? And I have like, no idea what's in your home. You tell me. But we do have checklists to give you ideas, and we have a very robust YouTube channel growing with videos, both tips videos and our evenings with artifacts that are resources for you. We will be at Rootstock. If any of you are coming, please come say hello. So we're going to have a double booth this year. We actually have a full slate of speakers that will be at our booth as well. So we'd love to see any of you there that are going. And this is me. You can share artifacts with me. You can write to me anytime. Here's information about us. We're very social. We're very friendly. We're easy to reach. And I also included a QR code that will work through the end of Roots text. So if you want to get started, I recommend starting free. Always try it on tablet, try it on your phone, try it on desktop, see how it works for you. If you have questions, you can reach out to me directly. And here's a QR code. Does anyone know if there's a way to unmute if anyone has questions? No. Oh, that's a shame. Well, you have my email. Please use it. I've only been back from the DAR for 2 hours, and I have dozens of emails, so I will respond in a very timely fashion. I appreciate you stopping in to learn more about artifacts, and I hope that you'll give it a try and see how it can help you share your stories with your families.